Antoinette Braybrook. I'm sure many of you know Antoinette. She's the CEO of Djirra, formerly the Aboriginal Family Violence Prevention and Legal Service Victoria, a position she's held since it was established 14 years ago. Antoinette is an Aboriginal woman who was born in Victoria on Wurundjeri country. Antoinette graduated with a Bachelor of Laws from Deakin University in 2000 and was admitted as a legal practitioner in Victoria in 2004. Antoinette has been elected as the National Convener of the National Family Violence Prevention Legal Services Forum. And, oh my goodness, your CV. I'm going through, recognised as a leader in efforts to prevent violence against Aboriginal women and children, a highly regarded public speaker who seeks to give voice to Aboriginal victims, survivors of violence. If you want to know all her other qualifications and awards, I just suggest you Google it because it's like off the Richter. But please, welcome to the stage, Antoinette Braybrook.
We need to cut that down. Can I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land we're gathering on today, the Wurundjeri people and their neighbours, the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nations, and pay my respects to elders past and present. Can I also acknowledge all of my other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, cousins in the room? As you've heard, I'm an Aboriginal woman born on Wurundjeri country, but my family are Cook-Yalanji from far north Queensland. And I have been the CEO of Djirra since inception 15 years ago. Today I've been asked to speak about culturally safe and accessible care for Aboriginal people experiencing family violence. I will share what Djirra has learnt from our many years of working on the ground at the front line with Aboriginal women who experience family violence. Let me start by telling you a bit about Djirra. Djirra works with Aboriginal victim survivors of family violence and with Aboriginal women who are looking for emotional and practical support within a cultural environment which is right for our women. Djirra is a Woiwurrung word for reed. These reeds, Djirra, are used by Wurundjeri women for weaving. Weaving traditionally has been a time where Aboriginal women would come together to share stories, support each other, and find solutions. The sharing of stories, the validating of the experiences of Aboriginal women, this is what has grown Djirra to what it is today. I hope you will pick up on some important tips on how you can make what you do as individuals culturally aware, safe and accessible. Because if you, as individuals, get this right, then you will be in a strong position to see what needs to change in your respective workplaces, and you'll change it. I mentioned earlier that Djirra works with Aboriginal victim survivors of family violence. What I didn't say, but what may not be known, is that the vast majority of people accessing our services and programs, that is more than 95%, are Aboriginal women and their children. So today, I will be focusing on Aboriginal women and their children. And while I'm speaking, I ask you to watch the screen and to see the photos of Aboriginal women. I ask you to see and realise their strength, their resilience, their courage, their humanity. In Victoria, Aboriginal women are 25 times more likely to be killed or injured from family violence than other women. And do you know that up to 90% of violence against Aboriginal people in Victoria goes unreported? So it's likely to be much worse than this. Do you know that our babies die at more than twice the rate of other babies born? Do you know that our kids are removed at rates far greater than other kids, and that they are 14 times more likely to be placed in out-of-home care, with family violence being the primary driver. And it does not stop here. Aboriginal women are the fastest growing prison population in Victoria and indeed Australia. More than 90% of our women in prisons have experienced family violence, and 80% are mothers. When I share these statistics and experiences and stories of the Aboriginal women Djirra works with, it is always important for me to stress that family violence is not a part of Aboriginal culture. That the Aboriginal women we work with are hurt and have been murdered by men from many different cultures and backgrounds. And by saying this, I am not making excuses for those Aboriginal men who do use violence against our women and other women. I'm just wanting to be sure that everyone understands that the high rates of violence experienced by Aboriginal women does not make family violence an Aboriginal problem. Many of the Aboriginal women we work with may not be connected to or living in what you might have in your mind as an Aboriginal community. Many of the Aboriginal women we work with living in urban and rural regional settings are often isolated from community and isolated from services for their safety. Family violence is not just an Aboriginal problem or an Aboriginal community problem. The high rates of violence experienced by Aboriginal women can be attributed to the structural inequality and discrimination that exists because we are women and because we are Aboriginal. Dispossession of our land, attempted destruction of our cultures, the taking of our children, the rape and slavery of Aboriginal women since invasion are all the unseen, unknown or unacknowledged contributors to these unacceptably high rates. Today, this manifests in many ways as poverty and intergenerational trauma and marginalisation. Aboriginal women who finally seek out our support after living in very unsafe homes for many years tell us how the system fails to protect. The very system that is supposed to put their safety first, that is meant to be supportive, non-judgmental. We hear stories of women's experiences of violence being minimised by police, by courts, by community service providers, including health workers and professionals. Racism is alive and it is real. It touches the lives of every Aboriginal person. When it comes to women we work with, the racism from services is all too obvious. As soon as we mention that our client is an Aboriginal woman, we feel and hear the reluctance they have to take the referral because it's just too hard, or they don't believe they have the skills or the knowledge or the many other unstated but well-known objections. As health professionals, you should also understand about the fear our women have that their children will be taken if their violence is disclosed or if she thinks you might suspect it. I mentioned the statistics on child removal earlier, which shows that this fear is not unfounded. Many of the Aboriginal women we work with have grown up in the child protection system, as have their mothers and their grandmothers. And all of these women know how this can break their bond with their kids. They know how their kids can lose their connection to culture and country. And they have the physical and mental scars of the abuse they experienced as a child growing up away from their mum to remind them of this fear. Most of you here are mandatory reporters, and this is a barrier to Aboriginal women disclosing or seeking your service. You will not know Susan, one of our clients, but here is a fragment of her story. Susan is a 45-year-old Aboriginal woman, mother of 5. Susan works full-time in a government department and has never had any child protection interventions. Susan fled her home with her kids after living with many, many years of extreme violence and found Djirra. Susan was quietly spoken and reserved. Susan did everything in that time to provide for her kids and to try and keep them safe and hide the violence from them. Not only them, but also from everyone else. Susan told us that she never reported the violence because she was afraid her kids would be taken if she spoke up. Susan is now safe, her kids are with her and thriving, and she is being supported by Djirra. In your work, it is important that when you come in contact with an Aboriginal woman, you understand that not all Aboriginal women will have experienced family violence, but many will have. So, referral to culturally safe organisations that provide programs and services for all Aboriginal women, regardless of their experiences, is essential. Aboriginal women will be more likely to disclose to organisations like ours, Djirra, and this referral you make will tell the Aboriginal woman in front of you that you have some cultural awareness, that you understand that making contact with an Aboriginal service and enabling women in need to speak with other Aboriginal women, it will build trust in you and your service. You will reinforce that Aboriginal women and their children's safety is always our number one priority, and it is your priority too. Our legal service can help with intervention orders, child protection, family law matters. Our support workers will not only support the women, but will work together with you to ensure a culturally friendly and safe response. Referring to Djirra has many advantages. Aboriginal women can access our community engagement programs, Sisters Day Out, and the Dilly Bag program, as well as our Young Love program. And you can be a part of these programs as well. Your participation in our programs, which are about building on Aboriginal women's resilience to reduce vulnerability to violence, will build trust and confidence. It will raise your cultural awareness and in turn make your workplace more accessible and culturally friendly and safe for all people you work with. Djirra exists for Aboriginal women. Djirra is Aboriginal women, and our belief is in Aboriginal women. We will not blame, we will not judge, and we will always acknowledge Aboriginal women's experiences with respect and understanding of her culture and identity as an Aboriginal woman. And we ask that you do this too. Just to give you an idea of the reach that Djirra has through our community engagement programs, I mentioned some of them before, Sisters Day Out and the Dilly Bag. These programs alone have reached out to over 10,000 Aboriginal women in Victoria. The value of our programs is undeniable. This is Aboriginal women's business, our cultural way. Women connect with other women. Service providers like yourself connect with Aboriginal women. Aboriginal women gain an awareness of legal options, because I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but appallingly, Aboriginal women are the most legally disadvantaged group in Australia. Many Aboriginal women do not know that they have legal rights when it comes to family violence, because historically the law has been used as a tool of oppression. So it's very hard now for our people to see today that the law can be used to help. Building trust and becoming culturally aware does not have to be difficult. It just has to be something that you work on and practice every day. Some other practical ways include making a connection by asking the identifying question and then following up with, where is your family from? What is your country? Mention other Aboriginal organisations that may be of assistance, like in Melbourne there's the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service. Across Victoria there's services like mine, Djirra. You can contact Djirra for some of our brochures and posters, have them available at your desk and display them. Tap into your Aboriginal liaison officer so they know that you want information and that you're also there to support. Aim to be aware and active. Trust goes both ways and grows with sharing. Invite Djirra to speak to your staff, participate in our cultural awareness program and partner with us on special programs. I must make it very clear that Djirra will never compromise the safety of Aboriginal children. We ask that if you come across an Aboriginal woman who discloses family violence or you believe is unsafe, please also refer her to Djirra's legal team. Yes, as health professionals, you have a statutory obligation to put the safety of children first. Djirra also wants to make sure that Aboriginal mums have access to support they need to care for their kids, free from violence, like Susan, who I spoke about earlier. The evidence is clear. The earlier Aboriginal mums, or any mum, are linked into culturally safe legal advice and support services, the earlier we can identify and address issues that otherwise might escalate and result in children being taken. We will make sure her and her kids are safe and not homeless. We will make sure she is linked into a broad range of services and support her along the way. We will make sure that the police response is safe. We will make sure that she is not coerced into signing her children away. And we will make sure she feels safe in getting more support from you. This opportunity for me to speak today is momentous. Really, it is. For years past and for many decades before that, Aboriginal women have been silenced, on the sidelines, invisible or plainly excluded. We know, Djirra knows, that things can change. The voices of Aboriginal women can be heard. And it is in gatherings like this today that partnerships emerge and new awakenings begin. It may sound a little overused, but it is. Together, we can make a difference to the lives of Aboriginal women. I commend all those hospitals who have taken the steps to strengthen responses to family violence. This is critically important. But I urge you, if you want these initiatives to translate to better responses for Aboriginal women, they must go hand in hand with cultural awareness training, strong relationships and referral arrangements with culturally safe and specialist services, Aboriginal services like Djirra, and a strong commitment from all levels of the hospital administration. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak here today. As an Aboriginal woman, it is always a privilege to be able to speak on behalf of the many Aboriginal women Djirra works with, those who are silenced and those who are invisible, because it is their courage, their resilience that makes everything Djirra does worth doing. Thank you.